In 2022, a Swedish geneticist won the Nobel Prize for proving something most scientists had refused to believe for over a century, that every European alive today carries fragments of a vanished human species inside their cells, a species we were told had nothing to do with us. What Svante Pääbo extracted from a 40,000-year-old bone in a Croatian cave rewrote the entire story of human, and the findings only get stranger the deeper you look. If you are new here, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this channel breaks down peer-reviewed genetic research into the real story of who we actually are. Every claim cited, every study sourced. For most of the 20th century, anthropologists treated Neanderthals as an evolutionary failure. The story taught in classrooms across Europe and North America was clean and simple. Modern humans evolved in Africa, spread across the world starting around 70,000 years ago, and outcompeted every other human species they encountered. Neanderthals, according to this narrative, lived in Europe and Western Asia for hundreds of thousands of years before going extinct around 40,000 years ago. They were portrayed as primitive, brutish, and biologically separate from us. The idea that they could have interbred with our ancestors was dismissed as fantasy. Two species, scientists said, cannot produce viable offspring. Neanderthals went extinct. End of story. That story was completely wrong. The breakthrough began in a laboratory at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig, Germany. A geneticist named Svante Pääbo had spent decades developing techniques to extract genetic material from ancient bones. The challenge was enormous. After tens of thousands of years, biological molecules degrade into tiny fragments contaminated with bacterial and fungal DNA. Most researchers thought retrieving readable Neanderthal genetic code was impossible. Pääbo refused to accept that. By 2010, his team had sequenced the first complete Neanderthal genome using bone fragments from Vindija Cave in Croatia. When they compared this genome to modern humans, the results stunned the scientific community. Every person of non-African descent carried between 1 and 4% Neanderthal genetic material. Europeans, East Asians, Native Americans, Pacific Islanders, all of them carried measurable Neanderthal ancestry in their cells. The implications were staggering. Modern humans and Neanderthals had not just coexisted, they had interbred, repeatedly, across thousands of years and multiple geographic regions. The species we had written off as a dead-end branch of human evolution had merged with our own ancestors, leaving genetic signatures that persist in over 6 billion people alive today. The next question was obvious. What do these Neanderthal genes actually do? Researchers began mapping the specific Neanderthal variants found in modern populations and tracing their effects. The findings were extraordinary. Neanderthal genetic material influences traits we never suspected at ancient origins. Variants inherited from Neanderthals affect immune system function, helping modern humans fight off pathogens that originated in Eurasian environments. Other Neanderthal genes influence skin pigmentation, hair texture, and the production of keratin, the protein that builds hair and nails. Some variants affect how the body metabolizes fat, particularly the kind of fat needed to survive cold climates. Others influence sleep patterns and circadian rhythms. But the most controversial findings involve the brain. Several Neanderthal gene variants are associated with neurological traits, including aspects of mood regulation, pain sensitivity, and even risk of certain psychiatric conditions. Researchers at the University of Oxford and the Max Planck Institute discovered that a Neanderthal variant on chromosome 3 significantly increases the risk of severe outcomes from certain respiratory infections. This same variant became globally relevant during the recent pandemic, when scientists realized that people carrying it had measurably worse outcomes from a particular virus. A genetic gift from a vanished species inherited 50,000 years ago was still shaping human health in the 21st century. The geographic distribution of Neanderthal genes also tells a fascinating story. Europeans carry slightly more Neanderthal ancestry than people from the Middle East. East Asians carry the highest percentages of all, sometimes reaching 4% in certain populations. This pattern revealed something unexpected. The interbreeding events were not isolated incidents. They happened multiple times in different regions, as modern humans pushed deeper into territory long inhabited by Neanderthals. Then came an even more shocking discovery. In 2018, researchers analyzing a bone fragment from Vindija Cave in Siberia identified a teenage girl who had lived around 90,000 years ago. Her genome contained something unprecedented. Her mother was a Neanderthal. Her father was a Denisovan, another archaic human species discovered through ancient genetic analysis. She was a first-generation hybrid, Direct evidence that interbreeding between archaic human species was not rare, it was common. The cultural impact of these findings has been enormous. The old narrative of human evolution, where one superior species replaced inferior ones, collapsed under the weight of genetic evidence. The truth is messier and more interesting. Multiple human species lived alongside each other for tens of thousands of years. They met, they mated, they merged. Modern humans are not the pure descendants of a single triumphant lineage. We are genetic mosaics, carrying within us the legacy of populations that vanished from the fossil record but never truly disappeared. This raises questions that science is only beginning to answer. If Neanderthal genes still influence our bodies and brains today, what does that mean for how we understand human nature itself? The traits that distinguish populations, the variations in disease resistance, metabolic function, and even cognitive tendencies, may trace back not just to recent evolution within our own species, but to the absorbed genetic heritage of human cousins who walked the earth before us. The discovery that Neanderthal genetic material actively shapes modern human biology has triggered a financial revolution in industries most people would never connect to ancient bones. The global personalized medicine market, valued at approximately $560 billion United States dollars in 2023, has been transformed by archaeogenetic research. Pharmaceutical companies are now investing billions of dollars into developing drugs that account for population-specific genetic variants, including those inherited from Neanderthals. Consumer genetic testing companies like the major American direct-to-consumer genomics firms have built entire business models around offering customers reports on their archaic human ancestry. The market for these services exceeds $2 billion annually and continues growing at roughly 17% per year. The pandemic accelerated this transformation. When researchers discovered that the Neanderthal chromosome 3 variant influenced respiratory disease outcomes, pharmaceutical research priorities shifted overnight. Investment in population-specific drug development surged. Biotechnology firms specializing in genetic risk profiling saw their valuations multiply. Companies that could analyze a patient's archaic ancestry to predict drug response became attractive acquisition targets. Major pharmaceutical corporations spent over $40 billion in 2022 alone on mergers and acquisitions targeting genomic startups. The implications extend far beyond medicine. Insurance companies have started incorporating polygenic risk scores, calculations that include archaic genetic variants, into their underwriting models. This has sparked intense regulatory debate across European and American markets. Lawmakers are now drafting frameworks to prevent genetic discrimination based on inherited Neanderthal variants, raising profound questions about the boundary between scientific progress and personal privacy. The legal and economic frameworks built around this research will define healthcare costs for generations. Even the agricultural and nutrition industries are being reshaped by this knowledge. Companies developing population-specific dietary guidelines now reference Neanderthal-derived metabolic genes when designing products for European and East Asian consumers. The functional food market, projected to exceed $300 billion by 2030, increasingly relies on archaeogenetic data to justify premium pricing for ancestry-tailored supplements. What began as a study of 40,000-year-old bones has become one of the most economically consequential scientific discoveries of the 21st century, generating revenue streams that did not exist a decade ago and reshaping global health expenditure in ways most consumers do not yet fully understand. The Neanderthals never truly went extinct. They live inside us, in the immune cells that fight our infections, in the proteins that build our hair, in the neural pathways that shape our moods and reactions. For over a century, we believed we had outcompeted them, replaced them, surpassed them. The truth is gentler and more profound. We absorbed them. Their genetic legacy has been carried forward across 2,000 generations, woven invisibly into the fabric of modern humanity. Every European who looks in a mirror sees, in part, the face of a species that vanished 40,000 years ago. The dead were never really gone. They simply became us. If this video changed how you think about your own ancestry, you are exactly the kind of curious, evidence-driven viewer this channel was built for. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because every week we break down the latest peer-reviewed genetic research into stories you can actually understand. No sensationalism, no speculation, just the science sourced and verified. Hit the like button if you want more deep dives into ancient human discoveries. Leave a comment telling us which population's hidden genetic story you want explored next. and share this video with someone who still believes Neanderthals were a separate, lesser species. The more we understand the genetic mosaic that built us, the more we understand who we really are. See you in the next investigation.